I think one of the biggest factors, antibiotics.
Mhm.
And either, there was a study that came out recently that looked at antibiotic prescribing, and it was interesting because they were looking at different ethnic groups, and they found that in the Black community and Hispanic community, antibiotics tended to be prescribed were more likely to be prescribed from a doctor's appointment than other groups or white Caucasians. But overall, antibiotics are overprescribed. But if you look at the rest of the world, you can just walk up to the pharmacy and get an antibiotic without a doctor's prescription.
Yeah.
So outside of the US, I think we can also say that antibiotics are being overused and oversimplified because people can just have a cold and say, I'm going to go get an antibiotic to knock this out.
Two weeks ago, our nanny had in Costa Rica had a like a boil on her butt, on the back of her leg. The best way I can describe it is like a big blister.
Yeah, it's like an infected blister underneath the skin.
She went to the doctor and they prescribed systemic oral antibiotics for a single blister on the back of her leg. And she told me the doctor said something like, if I don't give you the antibiotics, you're going to have this all over your body in 2 weeks. And I was like, that sounds like total BS to me. Like, why would you not do, maybe you could justify a local antibiotic ointment or injection or something, but to give somebody oral antibiotics for a blister on the back of their leg is insane. And in the time that I've known her, she's been prescribed 3 courses of antibiotics for random little issues like that. She goes to the doctor and antibiotics for this, antibiotics for that. I'm like, I cannot believe how common it is.
Look, I'm a medical doctor. I was trained in this country. I know how they think.
Yeah.
Because I was trained to think that way at one point. And I had to rewire the way that I thought about things, because you start realizing we're using too many antibiotics.
Yeah. I just got reminded of a study. I must have seen this 10 or 15 years ago, and I won't remember the specifics, but it was talking about the incidence of doctors prescribing antibiotics for viral respiratory infections knowingly, like not when they don't even, they're not even concerned that it's a bacterial infection, but prescribing it basically knowingly as a placebo, because they know that patients will walk out of the doctor's office more content, feeling more satisfied with that doctor's visit if they were prescribed something that they now at least have the placebo effect from. Versus if the doctor said, well, it's a viral infection, we don't have anything that can treat the viral infection, so just go home and rest and eat chicken soup and drink lots of water.
Having been there, can I just insert a bit of a dystopian tone to this?
Yes, please.
As a doctor within the insurance-based medical system, you have 15 minutes to see a patient and get them out of that room. So you want to do whatever is not just going to make them happy, it's going to move them out. And I was that doctor at one point that and they've looked at this, they've done studies. Within the first minute of a visit, patients telling you what they're there for, the doctor is already thinking, what medication can I prescribe to this patient to get them out the door?
Yeah.
And I ran into problems because I was the patient, I'm not the patient, the doctor that butted heads with patients, telling them you have a viral infection, I'm not going to prescribe an antibiotic. It takes a little more time because now I need to educate the person on, you've got a viral infection. These are the things we can do. This is what you can do to optimize your immune system so your body can fight this off better. Now, the caveat is something interesting that I discovered, and I know we're in gut health, but we're just on this tangent. I discovered during COVID, because I was researching why Zithromax might be beneficial. And I found a study that showed that Zithromax turned on antiviral genes in the lung cells that produce interferon.
Uh-huh.
So that's interesting because that's the one antibacterial that I've read actually has some antiviral properties that I didn't realize. So, just digging through the research, I found that. But by and far, like when I was working for one of the busiest practices in the Upper East Side, and already my philosophy was changing. Like, I couldn't with good conscience give an antibiotic. And this is before I really understood the full depth of everything that it causes in the gut and the downstream problems. And I refused to give an antibiotic to a patient. She walked out, checked back in, got in to see a PA in the same practice that she knew would just give her the antibiotic, and got her antibiotic and left happy.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
And then of course she gave me a really bad review
for not giving her antibiotics.
For not giving her the antibiotic.
Yeah. I think it's worth stating this directly. We're kind of both implied it, but just consider, given what you've said about antibiotics and gut health, now what kind of collateral damage is being done from just that one practice of prescribing antibiotics in this inappropriate context that's happening, hundreds of thousands of times every day in doctors' offices?
Cipro. So one course of Cipro, the most commonly prescribed antibiotic for UTIs, 5-day course, will cause a derangement in the gut microbiome, so an imbalance that without any other correction will take 12 months to recover.
Wow.
And when you do repeated courses of antibiotics, the belief is that over time, say like you're growing up, you're a toddler, you're being exposed to breast milk, your gut microbiome is getting expanded and educated. So by the age of 6, it's almost become like the adult gut microbiome. Say the diversity is here. Every time you have an antibiotic course, as you recover, you never hit the same diversity. It keeps dropping. You can never get back to where you were supposed to be. 5-day course of Zithromax, the most commonly prescribed antibiotic for, upper respiratory infections, 6 months to recover. Now, the scary thing is that I was at the Microbiome Congress, I don't know, I think it was 2018, 2019, heard a lecture from a researcher that was looking at what happens to the gut microbiome of people who live together when one of them is prescribed an antibiotic.
Oh, interesting.
And I think they were looking at Zithromax, so the Z-Pak, and they did different groups. So they did husband and wife, they did roommates that were not romantically involved. And the scary thing was that if one took the antibiotic, the other one who wasn't taking the antibiotic showed a shift in their gut microbiome.
Wow.
And it wasn't dependent on whether they were sleeping together, exchanging fluids or not. It happened across the board.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think that was, I don't know if that has been published. I know that was research that was being presented and they were, just sharing that. But I thought, wow, that's a whole other level that I'm not even ready to deal with, because you're prescribing to, you're a father, you've got a wife. Like, imagine now to think like if you take it, you're affecting your whole family.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's wild.
Or if my nanny takes it, how is she affecting my kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for something like that, I think that I would want to see the research and, just verify that it's true. But the big picture is antibiotics cause a loss in microbial diversity. If you lose microbial diversity, that causes an increase in gut permeability. Add to that the standard American diet, the lack of fiber in the diet. I still think, even though I just presented this whole juxtaposition between fiber-rich and fermented foods, I'm not saying don't eat fiber and just eat fermented foods. That could be really bad for some people. Fiber's still good. We need fiber.
And fiber's in some fermented, I mean, I don't know if it was in that particular study, but let's say you eat sauerkraut or kimchi or something like that, you're getting plenty of fiber.
Right, you are getting some fiber there. And the thing is that the average American only gets 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day, and we're supposed to be getting anywhere between 25 and 35 grams of fiber, even just for what it does to the gut microbiome and the immune system, you know. So that in itself, you know, antibiotics, poor diet, add stress, catecholamines. Catecholamines are like an attack on the gut. They increase gut permeability. High cortisol causes changes in the gut microbiome. Eating too much sugar, artificial sweeteners, all these things cause shifts in the gut microbiome. And whenever you cause a shift, our gut barrier is dependent on a healthy gut microbiome. So it's not just on our side, it's on the other side as well. And maintaining that mucus layer. So all these things lead to increases in intestinal permeability. I mentioned ibuprofen, birth control pill. So there's a lot of different medications that can increase gut permeability as well. Even acetaminophen they showed in a study that it will lead to imbalances in the gut microbiome, and anything that even if it's not directly increasing gut permeability, indirectly it will if it's causing a shift in the gut microbiome to something that's not as favorable. I think an important thing to mention is all of the symptoms that leaky gut can lead to that aren't just localized to your gut. Because leaky gut is the common denominator that connects a lot of chronic health issues. So leaky gut is behind allergies, asthma, airway issues, headaches, migraines specifically, any sort of skin rashes, hives, any other systemic conditions can be tied to the gut. Joint inflammation, even things that we call autoimmune disease, because we can measure autoimmune markers for it in the blood, could still be tied to leaky gut and to dysbiosis, imbalance in the gut microbiome, and maybe yeast overgrowth, things like that.